welcome. My special guests tonight are known collectively as Mr. and Mrs. Edwards. Before you switch off, I should explain that Mr. Edwards, whose first name is Blake, has had a long and distinguished career in show business. He started his career as a writer for radio, graduated to television as a writer and producer, but made a big name for himself with films like Breakfast at Tiffany's, Days of Wine and Roses, The Great Race, The Pink Panther, A Shot in the Dark, and so on, which he produced, wrote, or directed, or simply did all three. He's an American. His wife is as English as Walton-on-Thames, where she was born, and she achieved international stardom with unforgettable performances like this one.
Live with the sound of music, with songs they have sung for 1,000 years. The hills fill my heart with the sound of music. My heart wants to sing every song it hears.
Mr. and Mrs. Edwards, Blake Edwards and Julie Andrews. I think you've got one or two fans out there, actually. Marvellous reception. I must ask you, first of all, because it must be the thing that everybody asks you whenever they meet you, is what did you expect when you first met Julie? One imagines you had in your mind the image that people do have of her as the Mary Poppins thing.
That's a difficult question, because I didn't have any real preconceived notions when I first met her, because I unfortunately didn't get to see Fair Lady or Boyfriend, and I was really only vaguely aware of that lady. And I met her for the first time very early on in Hollywood, prior to anything really happening there. So I was unimpressed. I mean, how do you do? And that was the end of it.
You didn't do badly from then on, though, did you?
You worked very fast
You
after
didn't,
that,
yeah. Do you, in fact, or did you resent that? You must have come across this when you met people in that period, particularly when Mary Poppins was so popular, this thing that people expected to be something that one imagines you're not, really. Nobody's that good, are they?
Well, no, obviously not. Really, it was a slow-growing thing. It didn't happen immediately. And in fact, there were a couple of films. There was one film after Poppins that seemed to stop any kind of image, which was the Americanization of Emily. So it's really over the years, as time has gone by, that the image seems to have grown. And I guess that's because one's more and more exposed, the more films one does. And
yes.
Something obviously seems to come across.
Yes. How much is she like, though, this image, if we can stick with this Mary Poppins thing for just a moment longer?
Do you insist?
Well, it is interesting, actually. To me, it might be seem a feeble inquiry to you, but...
I think it's a fairly easy answer. Just get her to run through her four-letter word vocabulary, and you find out if you can.
She doesn't swear.
Listen, when I met her, I didn't even think she went to the bathroom.
Blake, how do you see it? Because you're, in fact, as I said, a film producer and director and a writer. How do you see her as a film property? If you're going to take a detached view, I mean, if you were in charge of a career at this moment right
well,
now.
he gets to sleep with me, if that's what you mean.
You mean that's how you get the jobs?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, I see. Through sleeping with a producer?
That's right.
I had not thought about that. Will you treat the question seriously?
Well, it's difficult to treat seriously if you're asking me to consider her as a film property. I would... and to be objective about it, I would have to say, well, if she weren't in one of my last films, she would be a very important film commodity. But I'm so prejudiced about her as a human being and as an actress that you know, I can only say that if I were not married to her, I'd try very much to do a film with her.
Because you've not had an exactly, as you say, successful relationship in film, have you? In
No.
certainly one respect. I wonder why that is.
Well, we really haven't had a very successful relationship in marriage either.
You haven't? No. Could we talk about that later?
If you like.
But is it difficult? It must obviously be difficult working man and wife together on the same movie.
For me, it's not difficult.
It's
In
not.
fact, I love it because it means that I can be close to my husband, and the family seems to be closer together when we work, and I feel that we're not separated by my going off on location somewhere and Blake's, doing something else. It's fine for me. I don't know how it is for you, honey.
But do you find it more difficult to get your own way, Julie? Do you know what I mean? To throw the tantrum that you really want
no.
something.
Well, I
She
never.
doesn't throw tantrums.
She doesn't,
No, I encourage you to throw tantrums. She doesn't.
really?
No, she won't. I throw them. Because she won't.
Yeah.
I think I'm probably more aware that I should be extremely tactful as Blake's wife on the set. I shouldn't try and throw my weight around or anything. I mean, not that I would deliberately do so, but I think I'm more aware of it on one of Blake's sets if I'm on a film with him.
Yes.
Just because, I would like to be contributive, really.
Yes.
But that's the only thing I sort of watch out for.
Yeah.
I'm a little cautious about saying, I'm always very insecure, but in this case I'm a little cautious about saying, are you sure it's all right? Could I do one more take? If he says it's okay, I try and go by that.
What are you insecure about?
Well, I think when you're working, sometimes you kind of watch yourself with one part of you. You are aware of what you're doing, and you like to improve it and get it better. And when I'm working with Blake, I let him be my eyes, so to speak, and I just do and hope that he says it's all right.
Yes. That sounds like almost like a kind of Svengali relationship in a way. I mean, is that so?
No.
It is a little, in that I suppose any director and star is a slightly Svengali relationship.
Yes. Yes.
I think I'm very influenced by your...
Well, hopefully she's influenced
Decisions
by me on my decisions on the set, because they're really, whether they're right decisions or wrong decisions, Mike, a director on the set is the one who has to make them, and hopefully you reach those decisions with the help of everybody.
Yes.
But in the final analysis, it has to be yours, and if it isn't that way, it's going to be a bad movie. It's,
Yes.
I mean,
we're
it may be a
pretty
bad
good.
movie anyway, but for sure that's going to do it.
Yeah.
We're fairly good about sort of stopping it when we've finished the day's work. I mean, we may have a few things to talk about, but it'll be either a personality thing or something like that on the way home in the car. But normally we forget about it at the end of the day, and then...
You talked about the failure that you had together, but let's talk about a spectacular success that you had. I mean, the film, I think, has grossed more money, Sound of Music, than any other movie, hasn't it? I think it's a
Certainly
top,
than any other musical. I
than
guess
any other
it's,
musical. Yeah.
Maybe now that since it's re-released, I think it probably is #1 in grossing.
Yes.
It is close to like Godfather, I think.
It was kind of the odd story about that, though, wasn't it? The studio really had no faith in it when it first came out.
I don't know about that. I know that we were all very aware that it could be over-saccharine and sweet, and we had to be very careful about it, that with religion and nuns and children and mountains and all that sweetness going on, it was too much. And so we all tried to play it down and make it very real and as much as we could.
Yes.
But I don't think... no, there was a considerable lot of money spent on the film and hours put into it. I don't think they thought it wasn't too important. I do know that I don't suppose anybody had any idea how successful it was going to be.
Yes. Well, let's have a look at the sequence from it that I suppose everybody remembers. We showed part of it before you came on, which is that magnificent opening sequence, that huge shot over the mountains there, and the camera comes onto you. Beautiful moment, I think.
It was very cold.
The hills are alive with the sound of music, with songs they have sung for 1,000 years. The hills fill my heart with the sound of music. My heart wants to sing every song it hears. My heart wants to beat like the wings of the birds that rise from the lake to the trees. My heart to sigh like a chime that flies from a church on a breeze. To laugh like a brook when it trips and falls over the stones on its way to sing through the night like a lark who is learning to pray. I go to the hills when my heart is lonely. I know I will hear what I've heard before. My heart will be blessed with the sound of music, and I'll sing once more.
It's a smashing shot, isn't it? That over the top of the hill, the helicopter shot
Yes,
there. Yeah.
it was an amazing shot to be in the middle of, because it was a helicopter that was coming at one sideways, of course, because the cameraman was hanging out at the side of the helicopter. And how they ever do that, I don't know, because there's no door or anything. It's just a camera down at you like this. But it was a jet helicopter, and every time we would do many, many takes before they were satisfied, and so the helicopter would come towards me and get closer and closer. This great sort of giant crab or grasshopper sort of looked like it was sidestepping towards me, and then it would make a circle and go back and come through the trees again, and I'd have to rush to the end of the field and start all over again. But every time it made the circle to go back, it would knock me flat from the downdraft of the jets. And so I would do my lovely bit, and then it would go bam, you know. And I'd pick myself up, and I got so angry because it just kept knocking me down.
Did you swear?
Yes.
You did?
Yes.
Do you ever get the urge to be, perhaps in those days, after the success of that film, to be outrageous in public? It's because people expected you to be too sweet and
Oh, yes. And if you're in a long run and you've been saying the same lines over and over and over again, you think, God, what if I say something absolutely dreadful? And it just comes pouring out, and I have no control over myself, you know.
Yes.
And then the word gets bigger and bigger and bigger in your mind, and you think, I'm going to say it in a minute, you know.
Well, I see. You have a word you think that I might inject here
Yes.
instead. I see. Can you give me an example?
Well, no, I can't really.
Do you think she's fibbing? Go on, you think of one example, surely.
Oh, let's forget it.
Well, tell me then about the problem of working on stage for a long time, in a long run. It must be very, very tedious, mustn't it? I mean, you did what? You did Boyfriend, My Fair Lady, and Camelot.
Yes.
Each of them, all of them.
All long
Incredible
runs,
long
yes.
runs, weren't they?
Fair Lady was the longest. It was 2 years on Broadway and then 18 months in London. So 3.5 years is like a long tunnel that you think you'll never come out the other end, you know. I broke it down into sort of 3-month sections. The first 3 months, you're struggling to get it right and to sort of gain control of it. And the next 3 months are just lovely. You're having a marvelous time, getting everything nice and sort of rosy. And then the next 3 months, you look for things and you listen to the counter melodies in the orchestra, and you try and combat the fact that you've got a headache that night, or your leading man has a cold or whatever, and you find anything to give you motivation. And then the last 3 months are just slog, and from then on it's slog, and you just do anything you can to keep fresh.
Yes, yes. What about the leading men that you've played with? Do you have any particular favourites?
Frankly, honestly, no. I've been terribly, terribly lucky. I think they've all been marvelous. I mean, to have been fortunate enough to work with Rex or Richard Burton. I mean, I just used to sometimes find with Rex that I would be standing on stage working with him, but I would have forgotten because he would be so wonderful, and my mouth would just be open and I'd be learning, you know, watching him do something. And the same with Richard. Richard was brilliant. Rex was fantastic. His timing was amazing. Richard had such a control of an audience that he would say, sometimes for fun, tonight I will make them cry in this speech, or tonight let me see if I can make them laugh in this speech, and he would do it. And there would be absolute silence where there would have been a laugh the night before, and exactly the same speech, and it was just the way he did it and how he did
How
it.
extraordinary.
Mm.
How extraordinary. Can you get that same kind of talent, do you think, on film, Blake? Can you get that capacity for the actor to transmit that kind of emotion?
Oh, yes, I think you
Can you?
can. I don't think that the actor has the latitude to work on the role in film like he does on the stage, because really every night is a tryout in a sense. He knows where his laughs are. He'll sense an audience each night, and he'll be able to do something like that. I think film is more challenging for an actor, really.
Really?
It's much closer. You see, on the stage, you only ever see anyone in full figure.
Yes.
In film, you could just show eyes or a face, and
Yes.
it would be that much closer. And
Yes.
the
You're
other
dealing with a role in pieces. It seldom is shot in continuity, and you don't take it out of town. Even if there happens to be a rehearsal, it's only for a couple of weeks, and so you really don't get into it except when you're on the set.
You've of course, your strong point has been, well, one of your strong points has been comedy. I know it's something that you like making comedy films. Where do you get your ideas from for comedy? Because many of them are original, aren't they?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, where do you see the comic situation?
I don't know. I have a particular point of view about life, and I'm constantly aware of ridiculous things that happen or potentially might happen. I will see myself quite often in a situation and become bemused about it. And then as I do, as a writer, I begin to think, well, taking that to its fullest extreme, this or that could happen.
Do you have an example of that?
Well, right off the top of my head, I was in a restaurant one night, and as I was being served a dessert, the napkin fell off my plate, and I reached for it. Now, it didn't happen to me, but the pie was right there. And automatically I realized that could be, under the right circumstances, a very funny thing should it happen. It's a very minor thing, but I'm aware of those things constantly. She has a nickname for me. She calls me Blackie because she claims that I have a very black sense of humor, and I do. Along with some of my closest friends, we perpetrate some terrible things. But to me, well, humor is very aggressive to begin with anyway.
Yes.
And I guess because I have an inner core of great aggression, and because I relieve it through comedy, I am constantly on the alert to keep myself in a humorous mood so that I don't become destructive, I guess.
Excepting that you have a fantastic thing, Blake. He will think of something funny, and where I would say, oh, that's a marvelous idea, and stop, he will go on, going one step beyond the place where most people would stop.
Yes.
And quite often, I know when I was writing the book, or when we've been doing a film or something, and we'll be working out a comedy thing, I'll do something that's funny, but he'll say, now what you've got to do is do this, this, and this, and he'll top it every time.
In fact, you made one of your films that I enjoyed very much and didn't get much of a public showing over here was a thing called The Party with Peter Sellers, who you worked with on four occasions or so. Let's have a look at a sequence from that movie, which is, I think it shows your sort of sense of black humor, because this poor Peter Sellers is the guy who can do absolutely nothing right. And here we find him on a film set about to screw everything up.
Mr. Bakshi. Yes, sir. Has it occurred to you that the period of our picture is 1878?
Oh, yes, indeed, sir. I'm very aware that is the period of the film, 1878.
Mr. Bakshi, are you also aware that in 1878 they weren't wearing underwater watches?
Yes, sir, I know that. They had not even been invented.
At the time?
Yes, oh, my God.
All right, lunch, everybody.
Wax, that's 42 on the crew, 1 hour for the cut.
Okay, guys, the cue for the demolition is when I lower my hand like this, okay?
Yes, sir.
Look, guys, we got one shot at this. Let's get it right.
Okay.
Okay, Kenny, let's go.
All right, places, everybody.
Marty, look, I just want the Clutterbuck on the phone. He says if we don't wrap this location today, it's your neck.
No problem. All we have left is to blow up the fort.
Okay. Great.
Okay, Ken, let's go.
All right, Carol,
Earl? All right, stand by.
You. Yes, you. You get off of my set and get out of my picture. Off.
Out. You're through. You're washed up. You're finished. I'll see to it you never make another movie again.
Did that include television, sir?
Kill him out. Kill him.
Yeah, you know, I could never understand, and I saw that film when it first came out, never understand why it didn't do any good at all, because it's a very funny movie. It's full of little scenes like that, beautifully funny little sequences.
It's a good film. It's one of my favorite films, as a matter of fact.
Probably the time to reissue it now.
Well, I guess. I never know about this.
Yeah. He's an incredible talent, isn't he, Sellers? I mean, is it difficult to harness that talent, or is it the opposite?
It hasn't been for me, and I guess harness is the right word. We think so much alike that truly it's just a kind of complementary thing that is constantly occurring. He will do something and I will embellish, or I'll come up with something and he will embellish, and it builds on itself.
You should hear them in a telephone conversation together. I'm only at one end, but Blake just giggles, and then I can hear Peter giggling on the other end, and they just set each other going all the time.
Well, we're about to prove that you're great gigglers, because in fact you told me earlier that you wanted to play the director in that sequence, didn't you?
Well, I was supposed to. It was suggested that I play the director, but it was impossible because I find it hard enough just directing him, but to be in front of the camera, I would ruin the whole thing because I'd laugh in his face constantly. I laugh behind the camera to a degree. Oh, God, it's terrible. I mean, there are a number of scenes that I never see until I go into the rushes, because halfway through I literally am lying on the floor, and or I crawl out and stuff a handkerchief in my mouth. It's true. We do that a lot.
Are you a giggler as well, though?
Oh, she's terrible.
I'm terrible.
Really?
Yeah. I, like Blake's been known to wrap a set because the company couldn't stop giggling. I've wrapped a set because I couldn't stop giggling. And
really?
Yes.
And what about on stage as well? Do you ever get the giggles on stage?
Well, yes, terribly. I mean, there were times that Rex was very naughty in My Fair Lady, and he would kind of tease me occasionally or do things deliberately sometimes, and I would know that he was kind of going to try and make me giggle, and boy, he sure did. And there were a few other things too, but...
Tell me.
Go ahead, darling.
Get out of this one. Come on. There was one classic evening in My Fair Lady when we were doing the famous scene at the end of the play where Eliza has run away from Professor Higgins' house and she's gone to Mrs. Higgins' house. And Higgins comes storming in to talk to his mother, and there is Eliza. And Eliza gives forth with a long, long lecture about the difference between a gutter snipe and a lady is on how she's treated and so on and so forth. And that evening, I don't know what happened to Rex. He must have eaten beans before dinner or whatever. But he was extremely windy, putting it mildly. And I was delivering my great speech, and suddenly across the orchestra pit, there was this machine gun volley. And that's the only way it can be described. And there was utter silence. The orchestra was stunned. And at that precise moment, it was Mrs. Higgins' turn to say, "Henry, dear, please don't grind your teeth." Well, I swear it's true. And I was absolutely gone. I mean, first of all, I was so nervous that I was going to giggle that I was giggling anyway. And every other line that I had to say in the scene had a double meaning from then on, because I would say things like, so you are a motor bus, all bounce and go, and no consideration for anyone, and this kind of thing. And finally, and I could see the line coming closer and closer towards me, and all Higgins has to do in this whole scene is turn his back to the audience and just listen to Eliza, singing and carrying on. And I finally went up to him and sang, "No, my reverberating friend, you are not the beginning and the end." And I was gone, and I think it took an extra 10 minutes to finish the scene that night.
Oh, poor Rex Harrison. Oh, dear.
Rex Harrison, what about me? I was a basket case by the time we got.
I bet you were too. Let's have a look. One of the things I know that you do, Blake, on this giggling thing is that you keep the offcuts of all the moments in the movies that we've been talking about, where you all corpse and this sort of thing. And we've got a couple here, actually, from the new film that you made, The Return of the Pink Panther, with Peter Sellers again, which I think it illustrates adequately what you've been talking about. Rex Harrison's not in this scene, actually.
Everyone, take 7.
Action!
Background.
Action!
Excuse me.
Yes?
Do you know the way?
221, take 5.
I see, but what is the trouble with that telephone?
If I knew that, I could call you simply up and tell you what the Simply. Call you up simply.
All right, keep it rolling. All right, here we go.
Still rolling.
Who's laughing in there?
321, take 10.
Yes.
If I knew that, I could simply call you up and tell you what the
What's the trouble?
Keep it rolling. Keep it rolling.
What is the trouble?
Keep it rolling. All right, here we go.
Right. If I knew that, I could simply call you up and tell you what the trouble is.
What's the trouble?
If we roll through, actually, I think we've got another scene. So that was poor David Lodge who was being copped. So here's another scene. Have a look at this.
Who is this man?
He's the guard who discovered the robbery.
How long have you had that beard?
2 years, sir.
I see. Suit you.
I'm amazed you ever got that film finished, actually.
Yeah, I am too.
As I say, you collect, don't you, all the things
Yes.
from all the movies you've done. It must be, is it quite a considerable reel of film you've got now,
Oh,
I would
God,
imagine?
yes.
Oh, there are the funniest things you can possibly imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, the idiocies that happen on film anyway.
Yes.
And you put them all together, and I mean, you just saw a tiny bit, but you can imagine a whole reel of the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a really marvellous idea for a commercial movie, actually, to put that stuff out. It really would, because it's so hilarious. Whether you ever get the stars to agree to it or not, that's a different thing altogether.
Yes. But
Julie,
it's fun.
can I go back to, as I said earlier, to the sort of start of your career? You were, in fact, sort of predestined, weren't you, to go on stage? I mean, there was...
I don't know. My parents were in show business. My mother and my stepfather were. And so I suppose it was fairly natural that I would just, growing up in that environment, that I would. Really, my stepfather had a fine tenor voice, and when I was about 7, decided that I should be taught to sing. I think all the press clippings in those days said that he discovered I had this freak voice, and indeed it was a rather strong voice with a phenomenal range, but actually I think he taught me singing really more as an attempt to get close to me as a stepdaughter and that kind of thing.
Really?
I think so.
A kind of compensatory thing, an overcompensatory thing in a way.
Probably, but I know I wasn't very happy about the idea of learning to sing. I didn't like it. He was a very big man physically, and I was always slightly in awe of him, although he was always very sweet, but he was a little frightening at times, I think. So singing was not the most pleasurable thing, but I did stick to it. They made me stick to it, my parents, really, and I had to practice half an hour every day. And, of course, I'm now very grateful that they did.
Mm. What was it you objected to, though, in those days? Was it simply having to be told to do it?
There's something very peculiar about singing. I can't explain it, and I've asked myself about it a lot. When you are singing, it is such a part of you. It's not like being a ballet dancer or being a painter. A ballet dancer can look in a mirror and see a line. She can join a class. She can be amongst peers, and there's a sense of competition. Singing is a very lonely, isolated business. You can't see it. You can only hear. You can only feel. And so I always used to feel tremendously vulnerable, and I would find that for no reason at all I would be bursting into tears. It might have been my age, it might have been my mood at that day, I don't know, but the fact that I was singing, sometimes it would get too much for me, and I found the singing lessons rather painful in a way. As I say, I'm very glad now. Even, I mean, it wasn't my stepfather that was making them painful, you understand, even with my singing teacher, who I've been with for, well, ever since I went to Madame Styles Allen, who took me on at the age of 10. I've been with her ever since. I never changed teachers, and she was a marvelous teacher. Even with her, I would find that the emotion would sort of be more present than if I were just talking or anything else.
Do you still get that when you sing? I mean,
sad songs can twist me in knots. And,
really?
Yes, I don't know why.
Puccini.
Yes. Yeah, I for some
really
reason
opera more than anything else?
Can't play a Puccini opera without just dissolving. Now, I don't know if that's harking back to my youth when I used to hear it. I don't know.
Mm. How difficult was it being the child star, though? It must present terrible problems to growing up naturally, mustn't it?
Well, you know, it's only in retrospect that it seems to have problems. At the time, you think that you're tremendously special and you're made a great fuss of. And my mum was awfully good about trying to keep me as ordinary as possible under the circumstances. They weren't ordinary circumstances, but she was very good, I think, very strict with me. Mm. I'm sure to many people I was a terrible brat. A lot of my problems came from facing audiences and wanting to be liked. Would they like me? Would I have enough to offer? Would I be compelling enough for them to sit still and listen? And could I get off with some grace, you know?
Yes.
That kind of thing.
Yes. And do you still feel that again as well today?
I think it's the reason I prefer film. Film work is totally your own. I mean, obviously you're working with a small crew or a large crew or whatever, but you are very private. You don't have to perform for anybody other than the director and the camera and yourself. Mm. And I love that.
Mm. Like, did you ever see, you must have seen in your long career in the industry, you must have seen terrible things happen to child stars like Julie was. I mean, she survived it very well, one would imagine.
Yes.
Mm. I mean, what sort of things have you observed in your career?
Well, I think Judy Garland is a classic example. I kind of grew up with Mickey Rooney and that whole MGM younger crowd that was so important in those days. And if you examine Judy's career as a child star and then on up, what eventually happened to us, very, very sad. You know, lovely, talented lady who was, in my opinion, really destroyed by the business, destroyed by the studio, and some pretty frightening things were happening at that time, and I know them to be true, to be a fact. They aren't just stories.
What sort of things?
Well, heavy pill taking. They would keep her on uppers to keep her going, on downers to get her to relax. And
as a child?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, that can only lead to a really bad scene, you know, and it did with Judy, you know.
It's terrible the way that they take a human being and just make it a property,
it's
isn't
just a
it?
commodity. And,
a commodity.
It doesn't happen quite so much these days, does it, Blake? I mean, I think those
no,
days
because
of
you don't have
Hollywood
that
are
big Oedipal. You have it, but not as it was in those days. That great big daddy running a major studio and treating his people like a bunch of bad little children, you know. And
but you've always hated the studio system, haven't you? I mean, you're anti.
Yeah, I think basically
You are anti the film establishment, aren't you? I mean, you've
very
always,
much so.
Very much.
Yeah.
Why is that? I mean, what's wrong with it?
Well, first that was wrong with it and is wrong with it.
The
It still is very
exploitation.
edible and parasitical. People who, and I have to generalize now, I'm not saying all of them, but so many people who run those studios, that business, and I don't like the word business either, are really not capable of being creatively talented themselves, and therefore there is a kind of parasitical position that they take, and they really live off of the more talented people. It's the way they sort of justify their own existences, and by living off of them and controlling them, they are very destructive, very, very destructive, because most people who make the films, who act, who write, who do all of those things, are pretty childlike to begin with, are really kind of looking for that parental guidance so that they don't have to worry, and they're taken terrible advantage of.
Yes.
And hurt very badly. But more important, I think that the creative judgments, or the so-called creative judgments that are set down by people really not in a position to make those creative judgments, in spite of the people who should be making them.
I mean, you've got the essential conflict, isn't it, between the businessman and the creative talent?
Yes.
I mean, that's the thing.
Well, the terrible thing about Michael, if I can just add
Yes,
it, is
please.
that I don't think many people know that there are very few directors, I guess you could count them on one hand, that have the privilege of a final cut to a film. You might get 3 cuts before you have to hand it over to the studio.
Yes.
But then most directors in Hollywood have to hand it over to the studio, and the studio then decides whether that's what they want, and if it isn't what they want, they cut it and do what they wish with it. Well, it's like asking Picasso or somebody to paint you a picture and then telling him how you would like him to do the nose.
Yes,
know.
of course, that happened classically to one of your films, didn't it? Star, which, I mean, went out not only in States, went out with a different title and cut down to about half its size. didn't it?
Slightly different situation. The film hadn't been a success in its original release, and so rather than sort of holding and re-releasing it some other time or hoping that on a second run it might pick up money, for whatever reason, it must have been such a disaster that the studio decided that they were going to completely take out all the documentary sections, make it into just a big brash musical, and they reissued it. To me, it felt within the first 3 months of it closing. Didn't they do it very, very soon,
Yes.
Blake? I can't honestly remember how long it took, but they just put the film out again under a different title, and
A totally different
I felt
title,
that would be an awful
And didn't help it.
thing to do to the public too, because it was taking them for suckers. You know?
Yes, that's right. It's actually, there's some nice moments in Star, aren't there? We've got one here that's.
I thought it was a fairly good film, I must say, in spite of all the bad criticism.
Yeah. Well,
Oh, it's a lovely war. Who wouldn't be a soldier, eh? Oh, it's a shame to take the pay. As soon as rebellion is gone, we feel just as heavy as lead. But we never get up to the sergeant, brings our breakfast up to bed. Oh, it's a lovely war. What do we want with eggs and ham when we got plum and apple jam? Wrong, boys, right, turn. How shall we spend the money we earn? Oh, it's a lovely war. Oh.
Don't do it. I'm sorry for doing it, silly thing.
a nice sequence there, wasn't it?
It was fun to do.
Yeah. Tell me, you, as I say, you did these 3 great stage hits in America and here, and you never did the film version of any of them, did you? I mean, Twiggy did Boyfriend.
Yes.
Vanessa Redgrave did Camelot, and Audrey Hepburn did My Fair Lady. You must have been very resentful about that.
I wasn't really resentful because I did understand why. Obviously, the first one was Fair Lady that was done. I understood why Audrey was chosen, and I hadn't ever made a film before and was a complete unknown as far as films were concerned. I was disappointed. I mean, I would have loved to have done it, obviously, and was hoping that I might be asked. But it's hard to be resentful when right around the corner Walt Disney happened to be waiting and asked me to do Mary Poppins. And so, no, I couldn't be that disappointed after that. I mean, that resentful after that.
It's a very curious system, isn't it, though, where you have somebody who's been very successful on stage with a musical, and a smash hit musical, and then you pick somebody to play the part in the film who can't even sing. Because, I mean, perhaps you can enlighten me as to the sort of thinking behind that, because, you know, you...
I think it's what Hollywood terms box office. And in those days...
Yes, it wouldn't happen quite so much today.
No, you wouldn't find it as much because you don't have quite the same thinking, and the star system is somewhat different, although it's getting back to that star system pretty much. It's amazing how the metamorphosis is taking place. A complete cycle is coming up.
Yes.
But I just don't think it would happen. They called it box office. J.L. Warner felt that she was not box office, that Audrey Hepburn was. He wanted Cary Grant to play Higgins.
Cary Grant?
Yes. Yeah.
That was an inspired piece of casting, wasn't it? Extraordinary. What would he have sounded like?
He would have said, Liza, Liza, Liza. Something like that.
I tell you, I read a story which said that, in fact, when you took My Fair Lady to Broadway, that, in fact, you had to refine the Cockney accent.
I was hopeless at it, and I never thought that my Cockney accent was any great shakes anyway. But I did. I was taught Cockney by an American professor of phonetics, complete reversal on what the play was all about.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, extraordinary.
And that's just the way it was. I'm not very good at accents. I can learn, and I have a fairly quick ear, but I can't just do things naturally like that.
How much of a traumatic experience was that? Were you so bullied into it?
No, that part of it was fine. The whole role was the hard thing, the enormous transitions, and it was a very difficult role because at one minute you were screaming and yelling your guts out in Cockney, and the next minute dancing like crazy, and the next minute singing I Could Have Danced All Night in a pure soprano, and then doing all the very heavy dramatic scenes as well. Alan Lerner once said that it's probably better to have a long run and a really superb role than to do umpteen weeks in summer stock or you know, something like that.
Yes. Going back to the Mary Poppins thing, you certainly got your revenge on the film industry, if one could put it that way. I mean, you turned around and cocked a snook at them, didn't you? Because you got an Oscar for it.
Yes.
Yeah. But I mean, first of all, why did that film work, do you think?
Poppins? Well, it was the first musical, I think. I may be wrong. It wasn't the first musical that Disney had done, but it was the first really big one in a long, long time. I mean, the first... Also, it combined that fabulous thing of animation and live action and all the things. There was incredible tricks and feats in it. And it had a joyousness, I suppose. I don't really know why it worked. A funny story like that, it's amazing.
Well, it's enough to say it was Disney, too, isn't it? Because the Disney name and...
I think it was the way he mounted it.
Organization is magic, and always has been.
And he really did make magic. I mean, the things that they thought up for that film, it was amazing. And as a first film, it was a little staggering because I was asked to do things like when the penguins are dancing with Mary Poppins and things. Well, of course, there were no penguins. They were all drawn later and done as cartoon, but one had to play to them as if they were on that table. And you know, if you look at your hand, you look at the hand. If you take the hand away, you're looking really far beyond it.
Yes.
So it was very difficult to pretend one was looking at it.
What about the aftermath of Mary Poppins? You know, that Mary Poppins is a junkie and all that sort of stuff that came out.
I was the first one to have one of those stickers on my station wagon.
Really?
Yes.
Really? You didn't mind that at all?
Not at all.
You were actually one of the first to be a junkie.
Well, she's already done something toward altering the image tonight. Let's not go too far. You've got a reputation also being a practical joker.
I have.
Yes. Again, from what one reads about you, is this true?
Actually, I guess of the two of us, Blake's more of a practical joker. I occasionally will do silly things, but it usually takes somebody like Blake or a very good friend or a close friend like Carol Burnett or somebody like that to spark me off, and then I'll really get absolutely idiotic.
Like what sort of things? I mean, how elaborate are you a practical joker?
Well, not so much a practical joke, just doing silly things. There was a night when Carol Burnett and I, who are very close friends, she's godmother to my daughter and just an awfully good chum, and we had been asked to sing at President Johnson's inaugural gala in Washington. And so we had been asked to do a medley that we'd done on a television show. So I came from California and she came from New York, and we were very pleased to see each other. And Mike Nichols, who is a good friend of ours, was coming into the hotel also that evening, and we left word for him to call us as soon as he arrived. And at about 10 o'clock at night, he called, and we said, well, why don't you come down and join us in this suite? We were having some coffee and hot chocolate and things like that. And he said, I'll be right down. Now, Carol and I happened to be in our robes. We were sort of dressed casually. And we both said, let's run down the corridor and meet him at the elevator and surprise him. There can't be many people about in the hotel this hour. So we did. Now we sat in front of the elevator, and once you're there, what do you do? So we sort of said, well, let's turn our toes in. No, let's turn them out. And then I suddenly said, well, why don't we be in a passionate embrace when the elevator doors open, and he'll be surprised and think it funny. So she said, well, who's going to be the man? And so on and so forth. And I said, well, never mind. And the elevator went ding, and I said, quickly, quickly, let's do it. So Carol swept me down in a deep embrace, and a total stranger walked out of the elevator. And Carol sank to her knees and went round behind the couch and wanted to hide. It was a lady that came out of the elevator, and she just gave us a very peculiar look and went on down the corridor. Well, I was laughing so hard I was crying. The elevator went ting, and we said, well, it must be Mike this time. So back we went into our embrace, and the doors opened, and it was packed with Secret Service men who were in the hotel, and nobody stepped out, but as the doors closed, they all sort of went like that. And then this lady who had come out of the elevator came all the way back down the corridor and said to Carol, aren't you Carol Burnett? And Carol said, yes, but that's Mary Poppins. And finally, Mike, the elevator went ting again, and Mike did step out of the elevator, and of course by this time we were giggling all over the place, but we flung ourselves into our embrace, and he just walked past us and said, oh, hi, girls, and didn't even notice.
Marvellous,
yeah.
Marvellous. What's the problem involved, Blake, of being married to somebody as famous as Julie? Because, I mean, to the public, I mean, you are, in fact, little known until you spell out what you've done. Then people have said, well, I've seen these films, this sort of thing. But you're not a public figure in the sense that she is. Do you ever get resentful of that people must meet you and say, oh, that's Mr. Julie Andrews?
No, that doesn't bother me. I don't think it ever has. As a matter of fact, it kind of amuses me. The only thing I think upsets me at all is, and not so much now because our whole lifestyle has changed, but in the beginning I was required to go to various functions with her, and I hate that. I mean, I hate the fact that you've got a suit on, because I never wear one. It's a nice suit.
Just feeling inadequate.
But I really despise going to dinner parties and things like that.
We both do, actually, so it's
not the way I like to live, and fortunately it's not the way she does either. In the beginning, I kind of had to tag along and put up with all of those lights, and there was a lot of criticism about the relationship and the marriage and things like that, which, you know, in the press, and that got me up a little tight. But in terms of being Mr. Andrews or the husband who was little known, married to a big star, listen, as long as she's making the money, it's great.
What a sensible fellow.
Sure.
Yes, that's a nice idea. That's a good definition of marriage.
Nothing the matter with it.
In the home, he's boss anyway, so...
I was actually reading a piece about his films the other day, something like they've grossed in all something like $100,000 million. I mean...
No, it's not quite true, but
well,
a lot.
It's a lot of money, yeah. You mentioned there's something that must again affect you as well, which is press criticism. You said about the time of your marriage and this sort of thing. How do both of you react to press criticism, or radio criticism, or television, or whatever, but people...
Well,
picking at you?
It's hard not to resent it if it's brought to your attention. We try to ignore it as much as possible. We don't read it. if we can help it. Generally, most of your well-meaning friends call you up and say, by the way, have you...
That's right. Have you read that piece?
Yeah.
Yes.
Or she will be stopped by reporters in an airport who will say, have you read the bad reviews that you got on your last film? And they're very basically mean, kind of inhuman things that they perpetrate. And I don't like that. I don't like people to hurt other people in any way. And the kind of character assassination that some...
That makes news is what
yeah,
you're
that
saying,
makes
yeah.
news and sells papers, I find pretty appalling.
What about you, Julia? Does it bring the worst out in you when people say things about you
Well,
that you know are not true?
Criticism in the form of a review for a film doesn't really bother me too. I mean, obviously one hopes that people will like it or that the press will like it, but the kind of things that make me very angry are what I call the gutter press, the columnists, people who just write anything for the sake of gossip, and it can be tremendously hurtful. I know there was a time in Hollywood when it seemed that I was the target for everyone, and it was very hard on my children in school and things like that. They had to contend with it too. It wasn't just me, and I got mad about that.
Why were you the target? Why were the particular
I think
target?
possibly because I was, you know, Miss Pollyanna and Mary Poppins and everything else. The image was that, and
Also,
it was
they
about
run
time
out
to
of
tilt.
good
yeah.
things to write. You know, it doesn't become news anymore. They've
Yes.
said all the good things. Now, what do we do?
I think
Well,
after a
obviously, we
measure of
attack.
success,
Yes.
people feel that it's about time you had your douse of
Yes.
She's
you know.
one of the few people that took some of those atrocious magazines to task legally against advice from agents, attorneys, everybody saying, don't do it, you can't win. Friends said, you know, don't get involved in that, it'll be dirty. And because these two particular magazines chose to attack her on a level that was really irreprehensible. It was a terrible thing that they were really doing, because one implied that she was not a good mother, that she did certain things with her child that really horrendous. The other, interestingly enough, at first we both just laughed about, accused her of having an illicit affair or an open affair with Sidney Poitier, like this was going to be something terrible. And my response to that was, Jesus, baby, you know, if you're finding time based on our relationship, you're quite a lady. And Sidney is an old friend. Julie doesn't even know him. She met him once. And it kept
No, but
going.
what
and-
made me angry was that they implied that I could
Well-
be persuaded to terminate the affair.
Well, that's what I was getting to. That what really happened, what really then turned the table was that they implied that she was forced to terminate the affair because the studio, the big bosses, said that the image of she and Sidney would be bad for her box office-wise, and that therefore she terminated it. And she got so angry for Sidney's sake and for the whole idea that something like that
Could be written. I mean,
could
that's
be
an
written,
appalling thing to do.
that she sued him, and by God, she won.
It's extraordinary, that.
Oh,
I mean,
it's
it's almost unbelievable, isn't it?
She's a lady who seldom verbalizes her displeasure with these people, but once, a particular lady in Hollywood, who for some reason, we don't know because we don't know the lady, has viciously attacked both of us, and constantly, in the worst possible way. And I feel sorry for the lady, because obviously she's got a great problem, and I've seen her, and she does have a great problem. but one time she wrote something, and it got to us vis-a-vis the usual route of friends and everything. And Julie was in the bathroom, and I was sitting on the bed.
See, I do go to the bathroom.
I said you were in the bathroom, darling. I didn't say you were going. And I said, what do you think about that? And for the first time, she really came out with something. She said, very properly, you know what that lady needs? She needs open heart surgery, and they should go in through her feet.
That's a nice line.
Yes.
Yeah. You're in fact writing yourself now, aren't you? You've got a secondary career. And you're writing children's books, and you've got a new one out called Wang Doodle.
The last of the really great Wang Doodles.
Wang
yeah.
Doodle sounds slightly sort of obscene to me, actually.
It does to a lot of people,
Yeah.
yes. It's been spoken about. But actually, a wangdoodle is in better dictionaries. You can look it up and find it.
Yes.
And the meaning is that it is a slight, a humorous, mythical creature of fanciful and undefined nature.
Really?
Yes.
And how did you start writing these books?
I've always sort of kept diaries, and I've always wanted to write, never had the courage to do it. And it's really Blake that made me persevere. And the books would never have been written if it hadn't been for Blake. We were making Darling Lily, and we were in Paris, and the children had, because I was busy working and Blake was busy and working, the children kind of just ran wild. They didn't brush their teeth at night, they didn't pick up their laundry, they were appalling, just awful.
Just
Very normal children.
Very ordinary children.
Ordinary
yeah.
children, excepting they were driving us crazy. And so I said, all right, this has got to stop. We're going to play a game around here. Anybody who fails to pick up their laundry in the morning and put it away at night, failure to do that 3 times in a row pays a forfeit of some kind, and if you don't brush your teeth, you're going to pay a forfeit, and I was laying down the law. And Blake's daughter, Jenny, who was, I think she was 11 going on 22 at the time, she said, okay, but you play the game too. And I said, well, what must I do? And she said, well, you've got to stop swearing so much. And I lost that game in about 10 minutes flat, and I came up with some thing that, and she said, there you are, you swore, now you've got to pay me a forfeit. And I said, all right, what's my forfeit going to be? And she said, well, write me a story. And I thought at first that I would just write half a page or something to keep my bargain, and then I thought, no, maybe I could write something that would please her and stimulate her and teach her a little something, I don't know. And I got the idea for my first book and told it to Blake, who said, you'd be a fool not to write it, do write it. And he encouraged me through the next year and a half while I got it down, and having written it, I gave it to Jenny, and my agent suggested that I submit it to a publisher, and I suppose because I was, partly my name and so on and so forth, they very nicely published it, and it was quite successful. But what happened was that I enjoyed writing that one so much that I felt rather lost when I had finished, and got the idea for the Wangdoodle book, and just went right on from there.
Writing, in fact, under the name of Julie Edwards.
Well, because of Blake. If it hadn't been for him, I wouldn't have done it at all.
Yeah. And is this, does this mean that you're going to forget so much about your showbiz career and perhaps concentrate more on writing, or what?
It might mean that, yes.
Would that please you?
It would please me tremendously, in that I don't think I would mind particularly working less and being home more. And writing is a lovely way of keeping a certain discipline going, but staying at home and being mother and wife and everything else, because I can write when the children are at school, and I don't have to go off to parts unknown, and.
And that you much prefer?
Yes, these days I do. I'm surprised myself. I wouldn't have dreamt that I would feel this way 10 years ago, but I do now.
Why is that, do you think?
I think it's due to that gentleman over there, probably.
Aww.
So are we not to see you then in any more of those marvellous musicals?
Oh, listen, if somebody said to me, you're never to work again, I think I would probably be very anxious. But the nice thing is that I don't feel I have to,
Yes.
And of course, I'm sure I'll do things.
Yes. Well, we're not going to let you go away without singing.
Oh.
No. You wouldn't imagine that we'd let you do that, would you?
I wouldn't imagine
that. No. And we've got a band back there. We just so happen to have them there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And they happen to have an arrangement as well.
I see.
It's all a tremendous surprise, isn't it?
Yes.
There's a microphone as well.
Oh, you just happen to have one handy.
I know. I keep it about my person.
All I want is a room somewhere far away from the cold night air, with one enormous chair. How wouldn't it be lovely? Lots of chocolate for me to eat, lots of coal making lots of heat, warm face, warm hands, warm feet. How wouldn't it be lovely? Oh, so lovely, sitting absolutely still. I would never budge till spring crept over me windowsill, someone's head resting on my knee, warm and tender as he can be, who takes good care of me. How wouldn't it
What can you say except what a trooper? No?
Yes, I can think of some other things.
You could think of something.
Yeah.
Not now, David, not now.
Sadly, we haven't got time.
Okay.
Blake, Edwards, thank you very much, and best of luck with your film. Mrs. Edwards,
Thank you.
thank you very much, and best of luck with your book as well.
Thanks.
So, same time next week. Good night.